All right, let's talk about my seventh date, I guess, or the seventh person I met on Hinge, which was the only girl that I actually felt like I liked. So this is basically my story with her and the lessons I learned along the way. From my main channel video, if you guys haven't seen that yet, maybe check it out first. I basically said that it ended in a way that wasn't great. I wasn't very detailed about it, so here is the more thorough version. But let's start at the beginning. So this was actually a girl I met, yes, through Hinge, but like it was one of those weird ones where it's like, okay, yeah, we talked on Hinge for a little bit, we moved it to like text, and we didn't really talk much, actually. It was sort of like a little bit on and off, and at a certain point I was like, would you like to talk on the phone? So that's what we did. We talked on the phone, and after we talked on the phone, it became a bit more real. I think we actually were trying to meet up, but our dates were not lining up somehow. So I was like, okay, how about a phone call instead? So we ended up doing that, and it was nice. It was a good phone call overall. Like, I felt like this was a person that I might be interested in. Um, and then we finally met up, and it was actually at Anaheim Packing District. It was a pretty nice place. I like that place overall. Like, just we ate there and just talked a lot in the area outside. Just walked around, talked, and got to know her. I got to know her. She got to know me. I mainly talked about like a lot of travel stuff and my I guess creative endeavors. And she told me her stories about basically she's not from America originally, so like she had a lot of interesting backstory, and I thought she was super cool for having done what she did, and like I respected her a lot and felt like she was a very strong person, and that I find like in general to be attractive. So that is why I felt like, I liked her. Out of all the people I met on Hinge, like I didn't really get anything like that or meet anyone as interesting and cool as she was. So after that happened, after our first meetup, we planned another one the next week afterwards. And that one was at a very, very nice mall area. And we talked a lot again. We played billiards that time, and I did like one of the coolest breaks I've ever done like in my life, where I sunk in like 3 balls, and I think they were all like my one suit, like solids, I think. So it was a great break for billiards, the best in my life. And I got to teach her, so I thought it was like fun to do that. So it was a very, very fun date, basically. And after that date, we walked around, the same date. We walked around, and that pole story where I talked about how we ended up holding hands, where there was like zero initiation from either of us. It was basically like just imagine like just walking, right? And then like, let's say this pole was like a lot longer, and then we're walking next to each other. So, we have to like separate because there's a pole in between us. So I move, and right after I move, right, like I swing my hand up, and then I swing it back down. Like I'm also like going back into place where I'm walking next to her. And then somehow during the downward motion, like her hand just ended up in my hand, like with zero intent on my side. And I was just like kind of confused. I was like, what just happened? Like, and that's when I asked her like, oh, is this okay? Like, because I wasn't sure if like I did it or she did it. And I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't like accidentally, I didn't accidentally do it somehow. And she was like, okay, it's totally fine. Otherwise she would have moved away. A part of me feels like, obviously she had to have taken some part in it for us to end up holding hands. Otherwise my hand would have just hit her hand. But I just, my brain was just like confused at that moment, and I thought it was a very, very funny moment, thinking about it again. Zero zero initiation hand holding, like, is what I call it. And that was definitely the first and only time that's ever happened in my life. But other than that, that was probably the moment, we decided to try to get to know each other even more, like consider like more. And for the third date, we went to the beach and just walked around like a couple, like holding hands and having a meal and talking and stuff. And that's also when that conversation happened where I was asking her, like, or we were talking about relationships and how, like, oh, what do you look for in a relationship? And she ended up mentioning how, she was just hoping that I was taller and like hoping for someone taller, and that she hopes it didn't hurt my feelings. I think she meant that, I think she meant that she didn't want to hurt my feelings by saying that. And she was definitely hesitant to say it. She wasn't blatant. So I appreciate that from her. But at the same time, it was still disappointing and sad that that was the only thing, because I was like telling her how I'm looking for someone with like ambition, someone with like things that they like, that they know themselves, they're thoughtful, and she had some of those qualities for sure. And I was trying to tell her, like, in that way that I see that in her as well. And she didn't really name a single thing that she saw in me, but more so just the height thing. And I was like, that is just sad. That's sad. Definitely a sad moment for me. But it was a lesson learned. In my main video, I said something along the lines of like, you got to manage your expectations, because oftentimes, like, you don't know who you're gonna meet. Like, it takes a lot of meetings, it takes a lot of time before you get to know someone. And it would be nice to just like get those questions out of the way like really fast. I mean, we kind of did. It was just the third date, like within 3 weeks, so it was quick. It wasn't like a super long-term thing. It still sucked to like someone, like the first one you like, and then that's what you get. But our fourth meetup was like the worst, and probably like I didn't mention any of it in the main video. I just said it didn't work out. But the fourth meeting, what happened was I met up with her, and then I helped her with something that she wanted help with. And then afterwards, like, we were just done. And I was wondering, like, oh, I thought we were gonna actually like really hang out, but I guess I just helped her with something, and she just went back home. And I was like, all right, I guess this is it. This is like, but at the same time, I was rethinking. I was like, in our conversation, she was asking me stuff like, oh, are you okay with just like meeting up once a week, blah, blah, blah. And I think I misinterpreted it to be like, oh, she's busy and like I can only meet once a week is what she was saying. But like, I think what she wanted me to say was that I wanted to meet more often and all that stuff. But I didn't say that because I misinterpreted it. And then that's the moment where she was like, oh, like she's just gonna go home, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, I feel like there were a little bit of signs of her being like, oh, maybe she wanted me to try harder. Maybe she wanted me to like be like, oh, can we actually do something instead? But I tend to not go against people's like stated desires. If people say they want this, if they want that, then I'll be like, yeah, I respect that. And I'm gonna let you go home if you wanna go home. I'm not gonna like trying to convince you to like hang out with me. But that's what happened. And again, these are just guesses. I don't know like for sure, but I felt that way. And then after that meetup, like a day later, she called and we just had a quick call, and she was just saying like, oh, like let's just be friends and stuff. Yeah, so that happened. And that is basically it. That's the story. And I thought she was really cool, and I really hope she's doing well. Like I feel like out of everyone I met, like she was definitely the one that I actually liked and was the coolest, like I said. But that's the full experience, and unfortunately, we didn't actually be friends. Again, I think I mentioned in the main video that's partially my fault, I guess, for not reaching out. back to her when she reached out to me. Like what, almost a year after we stopped talking. So maybe not a year. I think it was more like 6 months-ish. But that is the story of the girl on Hinge that I met up with that I actually liked, that had the most potential, I guess. Yep. Let me know down in the comments what your experiences were like using dating apps, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.